Selecting clients on the PrintQuote Pro menu will open the client output layout. And on the output layout you have all the record management features: create client, modify client, facility to display all records, omit selections of records, use selection of records, sort records, search for records, also search by the client's relationship to quotes or jobs. And you can delete clients. We can export clients and import clients. We can send email campaigns to clients, and we can send SMS campaigns to clients. Create mail merge letters for the clients. Select active clients, those that haven't been classed as inactive, or display inactive records. You can look at an individual client first by selecting the record and clicking modify, or just double clicking on the record. On the client details tab we enter the client's company address, company postal address, along with a concatenated postal address for labels and postage, delivery labels, etc. Also on this tab we can select an action to take with this particular client, which can be searched for at a later date. You can also send campaigns to clients from the list of campaigns that have been already created in the campaign section of the program, or you can send SMSs to a client, and you're asked if you optionally want to send those to the contacts as well. On the second tab, the Contacts tab, we can enter any contacts for this client. Any number of contacts can be added for a client, and these people can be included in any email and SMS campaigns if required. We can also choose to make a secondary client a primary client if we wish, which will switch them over between here and the client here. On the next tab, the Delivery Details tab, the delivery address for the company can be entered. Often a company will have a different address for its warehouse as for its administration address, and this address can also be concatenated to be put on labels. We also have a facility here to enter a special note for the client, and if there's any information entered here, it will be displayed whenever you link this client to a quote or job. The next tab, the Quotes tab, will list all the quotes that this client has requested. On the Jobs tab will be listed all the jobs the client had us do for them. And the final tab is for keywords, and these are words attached to the client whenever an email or SMS campaign is sent to them, and the user can also attach keywords to the client if they wish at any time. Attaching keywords enables an easy way to find records using the master keyword list. Selecting quotes under the PrintQuote Pro menu will open the output layout for the quotes file. On the output layout you have all the record management features: create quote, modify quote, all records, omit selections of records, use selection of records, sort records, search for particular records, and delete records. And there's options there to duplicate records and export quote records, and you can also email quotes from one installation of PrintQuote Pro to another installation of PrintQuote Pro when you've got two installations of PrintQuote Pro that aren't set up as multi-user. And you can convert a quote to a job, and by clicking on the Templates button, display all the templates. To view an individual quote record, we can select it and click on the modify button or double click on the record. And there are 9 tabs on the quote import layer: job details, printing, guillotining, finishing 1, finishing 2, finishing 3, costings, quote text and keywords. On the job details button we can enter the job name, the job description, and we can link a client to the quote. We can choose the date required, the order number, enter the 4 quantities, choose the salesperson. The default salesperson is chosen automatically. We can duplicate this quote, and selecting the create template from this quote checkbox will create a template when we save the quote. On the printing tab we can select the press to be used in the job and the colour combinations for both side 1 and side 2, whether we're going to have wash-ups for side 1, side 2, and ink mixing for side 1, side 2, and if we're using an offset press we can manipulate which plates are going to be used by clicking on the plates button. The external artwork can be entered in detail by clicking on the header, or we can just enter a value for each of the areas of the artwork. We can do that also for the internal artwork, and we can also select the person who's completing the artwork. We can also choose what's been supplied by the client for the job, enter the numbering and perforating. We can enter the start and finish numbers, and perforations we can enter details about the perforations. We can choose to use the num-perf run rate or the ink run rate. And in the books NCR section we can choose books, enter the pages per section and the pages per book, choose pads, or we can do NCR, choose what's in the set and how many sets per book and whether they're pads or books. And we also can choose whether each page of the book is the same or different, which will affect the number of plates being chosen. On the guillotining tab we can select the stock for the job. We can add new stock, modify stock and create special stock. A special stock item is a stock that's not only going to be used for this particular job and is saved with the quote and not added to the general stock items. In the document layout section, this is where we enter the sheet sizes and how they are to be cut and which way the grain is to be run, as well as the number of pieces and cuts. And here we can also enter a space between the cuts if we wish. The sheet sizes are carried over from the PrintQuote Pro Setup Sheet Sizes tab. And in the stock costing section we enter the number of overs for each of the quantities, the stock price is calculated, and the guillotining is calculated. We can choose to include guillotining stock overs, and we can also include the cost of the stock used for overs. When we use stock we can choose the end rate or the second rate. This particular stock doesn't have a second rate, only an end rate. Finishing 1 tab is where we enter all the costings based on a rate for each item: die cutting, folding, drilling, collating, miscellaneous per page 1, miscellaneous per page 2. On the Finishing 2 tab is where we do the costings per book, horizon finishing equipment per book item 1, binding, wire plastic binding per book binding, miscellaneous per book binding. On the finishing 3 tab is where we do the costings by area rate. We can also have an additional items per piece for the finishing and add dies and forms. Here also we can enter the packaging, the number of pieces per pack and the number of pieces or packs per carton. And we can also add additional work at an hourly rate or quantity rate to being added to the job total. On the costings tab, you'll see all the items in this job listed. To view the breakdown, we can double click on them. Same with the finishing. And we can also print those details if we wish. We can also modify the totals manually. We can add outside work to the job, enter a markup, a discount, a freight rate before or after tax, and choose the tax rate. On the quote text tab, the text that is compiled from all our choices within the quote are compiled, as well as a listing of all the costings for all the quantities. We can click on the View Quote button to bring up or choose a template that's a custom template. We can merge the data with the quote data. We can save it to the database with this quote. We can right click and insert tags, dates, merge the data, insert the conditions of sale and paste the logo in. Here we can email this quote to the client. We can also SMS this quote to the client. We can choose to send it to the contacts as well. We can choose to email it as an HTML quote template or attach a PDF of the quote to a marketing email or some other type of email. We can print the quote using the default layout in the preferences. To convert this quote to a job, we click on the Convert to Job button, and then we're asked to confirm the conversion, and if we accept, we're then asked to enter in a job number. On the Keywords tab, we can include and attach keywords to this particular quote so it can be retrieved easily at a later date. Selecting jobs on the PrintQuote Pro menu will open the output layout of the jobs file. On the output layout you have all the record management features: create job, modify job, the facility to select all records, omit selections, use selection, sort records, search records, and delete records. The options that are specific to the jobs are the ability to duplicate records and export jobs to disk. This export jobs feature enables you to save the jobs to disk as a text file, which will allow you to load them into Excel or any other typical type spreadsheet program. And we also have convert job to quote. So we can select a job, convert it to a quote. Of course it will only have one quantity. You can view an individual job by double clicking on the job or selecting the job and clicking the modify button. On the job input layout there are 10 tabs: job details, production, printing, guillotining, finishing 1, finishing 2, finishing 3, costings, quote, text and keywords. On the job details, the tab is similar to the job details tab of the quotes, with the addition of the delivery address. Clicking on create delivery address loads the delivery address or creates the delivery address from the linked client. We also have an invoicing details button. On the PrintQuote Pro setup we could set the title of a button for information used in the job. So you can set this to have any information you wish. It'll be printed on the job sheet. In this case we've called it invoicing details, and that's so that when the job sheet goes through to the office, then they'll know how to approach the invoicing. We also have the default salesperson selected. We can add another salesperson or modify salespeople or select another salesperson there. So we also have the facility to duplicate this job, or we can create a template from this job by clicking this checkbox and then clicking the save button. The production tab is for tracking the progress of jobs and creating log entries to deal with issues pertaining to a particular job and its process. At the top of the screen, the current process can be set by choosing which process the job is at from the drop-down menu, selecting an item and then clicking the current process button, which will transfer that to this job. Also, whether or not the job is an in-house job or a contract job can be identified by selecting the relevant radio button. The default is for the in-house job radio button to be selected when you create a new job. The printing tab is similar to the quotes printing tab, with the addition of checkboxes to indicate whether existing artwork, film or plates are to be used in the job. All the rest is the same. The guillotining tab is similar to the quotes guillotining tab, with the addition of being able to enter subcontractor details and information concerning the guillotining of the job, and that will be printed on the job sheet. The finishing 1 tab, the finishing 2 tab, the finishing 3 tab and the costings tab are exactly the same as those in the quotes. There are some differences on the quote text tab. There is the addition of delivery instructions, details for the courier and the facility to print a consignment note, with the addition of a barcode is available. The barcode information, country code and manufacturer's code are entered into the client details tab of the preferences, and the product code can be entered by selecting the appropriate item on the select product type drop down menu. We can also add and modify product types here, and we can add a graphic that can be printed on the consignment note if we wish. If we click print note, the label designer is opened. We can select the label and then print the label. We can create all manner of labels here, and they can be stored for use at a later date. Clicking on the print invoice button will print out an invoice for the job. You'll be asked if you want to create a new invoice number. You can choose yes or no. If it's the first time, you'll use yes. If you want a reprint of an existing invoice, just select no. We can preview it, print it or export it. Because this layout is the detailed layout for an internal job, it doesn't have a client address on it. And this gives a breakdown of the job and the components in the job. We can also click on Print Job Sheet to print the job sheet for this job. And there's a sheet for each part of the job, as well as outside contracted work added at the end of the job sheet. So there'll be a job sheet basically for each press if there's multiple presses used. And we can also convert this job to a quote by clicking on Convert to Quote. The quote will of course only have one quantity, but it might be the case where we don't have we've created a job from start without having created a quote for it, and now we want to go back and create a quote for someone else for a job that's similar to this job. Clicking on the View Quote button will open the quote that was created with the quote prior to being converted to this job. So you can review the quote that was actually sent out to the client if you wish. The Keywords tab is where we can view the keywords that are attached to this job, or add any additional keywords we wish to this job. We can also create new keywords and also link existing keywords to this job. Selecting letters on the PrintQuote Pro menu will open the output layout of the letter file. On the output layout you have all the typical record management features: create letter, modify letter, all records, omit selection, use selection, sort the records, search the records, and delete records. You can look at an individual letter by double clicking on it, or selecting the letter and clicking modify. The input screen is a fully functional word processor with a toolbar. This word processor has all the features found in any word processor, and there's a number of additional features. Documents can be saved into the PrintQuote Pro database, and they can also be saved as PDF files to disk. You can insert tags into the letter for the client. You can also insert the date, and you can right click on the letter to insert tags, insert dates, and to paste the company logo that was saved on the company logo tab of the preferences. If you click on the help button here, you'll find that there's a great deal of information about how to use the word processor, all the menu commands and all the button commands, plus a list of all the tags that can be entered for clients and quotes. Selecting campaigns on the PrintQuote Pro menu will open the output layout of the campaign file. On the output layout you have the typical record management features: create campaign, modify campaign, all records, omit selection, use selection, sort the records, and search the records, and you can also delete records. Selecting a campaign and double clicking on it, or selecting it and clicking the modify button, will open the input layout for the email campaign file. Here you can enter the title of the campaign, the subject that the email is going to have, and you can insert fields by selecting the drop down menu with all the client fields and insert those into the subject. You can choose the sender email account These are entered on the Email SMS tab of the Preferences dialog, as the same with the unsubscribe tags. You can create any number of unsubscribe accounts and associate each unsubscribe account with a particular marketing campaign, so that later on you can see who wished to unsubscribe from that campaign. You can also choose the number of processes with which you want to process the emails. If you have more than one process, then they'll be sent to the server simultaneously. At the server though, they'll be sent out one at a time, but that frees PrintQuote Pro for you to continue working. Clicking on the question mark button will tell you how much memory you require for the processes. We can also add keywords to a campaign so that the records can be found at a later date more easily. So it's a client keyword, so that then we can search clients by that keyword. We can also send a number of types of email. We can have a text file that's on disk, an HTML file on disk, a letter, one of the previous letters we've created will be converted to HTML and then sent. And we can also choose a letter and take the text out of it and send that by email. We click on this button to load the disk file, and we have the facility to add any number of attachments to an email campaign. You just need to take care here that the email doesn't become so large it becomes annoying for the client to open. They'll just delete it. We can duplicate a campaign if we have a number of campaigns that are the same or very similar. We can duplicate it and just make the changes that we require between the two campaigns. And we can test an email campaign by having a phony company set up in our company file, client file, that has our own email address in it. And so then you can test all your campaigns prior to sending them. And I advise you do that because you need to make sure that all the graphics are loading into the email when the client opens them. Also, all the tags have been entered correctly and the data is being put in the email. You wouldn't send out an email without first testing it to see whether everything's working correctly.